There are places where the land feels solid beneath your feet, and then there are places where even the ground feels like it's listening. The swamp was the second kind. I didn't grow up there, didn't belong there, and maybe that's why it noticed me so quickly. I had come down to Louisiana for what was supposed to be a simple job, documenting old settlements along the bayou, mapping structures that had been abandoned or forgotten over time, flood zones, historical remnants, things most people passed by without ever realizing what they were looking at. That's what I told myself, that it was just work, just another assignment. But the moment I left the main road and started deeper into the wetlands, something changed. The air hit first, thick, heavy, like breathing through something that didn't want you there. Humidity wrapped around me instantly, clinging to my skin, my clothes, even the inside of my throat. Every breath tasted faintly of decay, wet wood, stagnant water, something older underneath it all. The trees didn't grow straight out there, they twisted, roots rising out of the water like skeletal fingers, branches bending low, draped in hanging moss that moved even when there was no wind, especially when there was no wind. I remember slowing the truck without meaning to. The road, if you could even call it that, narrowed into a thin strip of dirt, cutting through black water on both sides. It looked less like a path and more like something the swamp allowed to exist. Temporarily, I checked the map. Everything was where it should have been. Coordinates matched, the route was correct, and still, it felt like I was going somewhere I wasn't supposed to. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. Not silent. Never silent. The swamp doesn't go quiet, but the sounds changed. Less birds, more subtle things. Ripples in the water that didn't match anything I could see. Branches shifting slightly even when the air stood still. And something else. Something I couldn't place at first. It took me a while to realize what it was. There were no insects, not one. No buzzing, no whining near the ears, no movement in the air. For a place like this, that wasn't just strange, it was wrong. I drove for another 20 minutes before I reached the first site, or what used to be one, a cluster of wooden structures barely holding together, sat just off the edge of the water. Stilts buried deep in the mud, planks warped and gray with age, roofs sagging under years of neglect. It looked abandoned completely, but the kind of abandoned that still felt occupied. Not by people, by something else. I parked a short distance away and stepped out. The heat hit harder outside the truck, thicker, heavier, the kind that slows your thoughts if you stand in it too long. I grabbed my bag, checked my equipment, and started toward the nearest structure. The wood creaked under my boots as I stepped onto the raised walkway, soft, unstable. Every step felt like it might give way, but it held, barely. I moved slowly, eyes scanning everything out of habit. Broken windows, collapsed sections of roof, nothing out of place for something this old, until I saw the door. Half open, just enough to suggest it hadn't been left that way by accident. I stopped a few feet away, listened. Nothing. No movement inside, no sound at all. Just that thick, pressing quiet. I pushed the door open slowly. It creaked, long and low, the sound stretching out across the water like it didn't belong there. Instead, inside the light dimmed instantly. The air felt cooler, but not fresher. Worse, the smell changed. Less swamp, more something contained. Something that had been sitting there too long. I stepped in. The floor groaned beneath me. The room was small, bare walls, a broken table, remnants of something that might have been a living space once. And then I saw it. On the far wall, carved into the wood, deep, deliberate, not random scratches, not damage, words, old, but still clear enough to read. I moved closer, heart beating just a little faster now, and when I finally made them out, my stomach tightened. Do not answer when it calls. The letters were uneven, rushed, like whoever carved them didn't have time to make them clean. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to understand, trying to place it, but before I could, something moved outside. Not loud, not sudden, just enough. A shift in the water. I turned toward the doorway. The swamp beyond it looked the same, still, dark, unmoving, and yet that feeling settled in, slow, heavy, certain. I wasn't alone out there anymore, and whatever this place remembered, it had just noticed me too. I stood there in the doorway longer than I should have, eyes locked on the water, waiting for it to move again. The surface had already gone still, too still. Not even a ripple remained where I'd heard it shift. Just that dark, glass-like reflection of the trees above, broken only by drifting strands of moss. Nothing. No sign that anything had been there at all, but that feeling, it didn't leave. If anything, it got stronger, like the moment I noticed it, it noticed me back. I stepped out onto the walkway slowly, careful not to make too much noise. Though the wood betrayed me with every creak, the sound carried farther than it should have, stretching out across the water like a signal, announcing me. I didn't like that. Didn't like how exposed it felt out there, standing above water I couldn't see into, surrounded by trees that blocked out more light than they let through. I moved to the edge of the walkway and looked down. The water was darker than I expected, not just murky, thick, like it wasn't reflecting the shadows. It was holding them. I leaned slightly, trying to see deeper. Nothing. No bottom, no movement. Just that same heavy stillness. And then a ripple, small, circular, directly beneath me. My breath caught. I froze in place. The ripple spread outward slowly, too slowly, like something had disturbed the water from below but wasn't in a hurry to surface. I stepped back instinctively. The ripple faded, gone again. I stared at the spot, waiting. Seconds passed, then longer. Nothing came up. Nothing broke the surface. But I knew something had been there, close, watching from below. A low chill ran through me despite the heat. I turned away from the edge, scanning the rest of the structure. The other buildings that sat in similar condition, tilted, rotting, half claimed by the swamp. Walkways connected them in uneven lines. some broken entirely, others barely holding together, all of them empty, or at least they looked empty. That message on the wall replayed in my mind. Do not answer when it calls. Calls, not attacks, not hunts. Calls. That word stuck with me because it meant one thing clearly. Whatever this was, it didn't just come for you. It made you come out. It made you come to it. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my thoughts. This was exactly the kind of thing you hear in places like this. Local warnings, old stories carved into walls, meant to scare off trespassers or keep people from wandering too far. That's what I told myself. It made sense. It had to, because the alternative didn't. I moved off the first structure and onto the next hallway, testing each step before putting my full weight down. The wood shifted under me, soft, unstable, but still holding. For now. I kept my eyes moving between the buildings, across the water, up into the trees. Still no insects, no birds, just that same quiet, filled with things that didn't make sound. Halfway across the walkway, I heard it again. This time, closer, a soft disturbance in the water. Not beneath me, to my right. I turned slowly. The surface shifted again, just a faint movement like something had brushed just under it. Then another, moving parallel to the walkway, keeping pace with me. My pulse picked up. I stopped. The movement stopped. I took a step. It followed, slow, controlled, not random, not drifting, tracking. A cold weight settled in my chest. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't an animal passing through. It was aware of me, matching me, staying just out of sight. I backed away from the edge slightly, putting more distance between myself and the water. The movement didn't stop. It adjusted, keeping the same relative distance. Always there, always beneath the surface. My throat felt dry. Just a gator, I muttered under my beneath. It sounded weak, even to me, because gators surface. They show themselves. They breathe. This thing didn't. The walkway creaked louder as I picked up my pace. Not running, not yet, but faster, more deliberate. The next structure came into reach, its door hanging wider open than the first. I stepped inside quickly. The shift was immediate. The sound from the water stopped completely, like it couldn't follow me in or didn't need to. I stood just inside the doorway, listening, waiting. Nothing. No movement outside. No ripple. Just that same oppressive stillness. My eyes adjusted to the dim interior. Similar layout, same decay. But something else caught my attention this time. The floor. Marks. Dragged across the wood. Deep. Repeated. Like something had been pulled over and over again. Toward the far corner of the room, my chest tightened. I followed the marks slowly, each step heavier than the last. They ended at the wall, where the wood had been scratched away, not carved this time. No words, just damage, deep, violent, like something had tried to get out or something had been forced in. I crouched slightly, studying it, try to make sense of the pattern, and that's when I heard it. Not outside, not in the water, inside the structure, behind me. A sound so faint I almost convinced myself it wasn't real. A breath, not mine. I froze, every muscle locked. The air behind me felt occupied, close, too close. Slowly, very slowly, I started to turn because whatever was in the water wasn't the only thing watching me anymore. I didn't turn all the way at first, just enough to catch the doorway in my peripheral vision. Empty. The walkway behind it stretched out over the water, still and quiet, like nothing had ever moved there at all. But the air inside the room, it had changed. That's the only way I explain it. It felt thicker, occupied, like I'd stepped into a space that was already being used, and whatever was there hadn't left when I came in. My chest rose slowly, carefully, as I tried to control my breathing, because that sound, that breath, it hadn't come from outside, it had come from inside, with me. I turned a little more, nothing, just the same broken furniture, the same warped boards, the same shadows pulling in the corners where the light couldn't reach. No movement, no shape, no one there, and yet that feeling stayed, stronger now, closer, like something was standing just outside my vision, watching me from an angle I couldn't quite catch. I straightened slowly, every movement deliberate, controlled. "Hello?" I called out. The word left my mouth before I could stop it. The moment it did, I felt it, that same subtle shift, like I'd just done something important, something I shouldn't have. The silence that followed was immediate, total. Even the faint ambient sounds from the swamp outside seemed to drop away. For a second, I thought nothing would happen, that maybe I'd imagined it, that maybe the isolation, the heat, the quiet, it was all just getting to me. Then a voice answered, soft, close, from somewhere behind me. "You made it." My blood ran cold. I didn't turn. I couldn't, because I knew that voice hadn't come from the doorway, and it hadn't come from the water. It was inside the room, with me. "Took you long enough." The tone wasn't aggressive, wasn't threatening. If anything, it sounded familiar. That's what made it worse. There was something in the way it spoke, something that brushed against recognition without fully becoming it. Like hearing a voice you almost know but can't place. I swallowed hard, forced myself to stay still, because the warning from the first structure hit me again. Do not answer when it calls. My heart pounded louder in my ears. It had called, and I had answered, not directly, not intentionally, but I had responded, and now it was responding back. "You're not supposed to be here alone." The voice shifted slightly, closer, just a fraction. Not moving across the floor, not stepping, just closer. Like distance didn't apply to it the way it should. My hands tightened at my sides. Every instinct screamed at me to run. to get out, to put space between me and whatever this was. But something held me there, not physically, mentally. Like the moment I moved, I'd lose track of it. And that felt worse. They don't tell you what this place is. The tone changed again, less conversational, more knowing, like it understood something I didn't. My throat felt dry. I wanted to ask what it meant. I wanted to demand answers, but I stayed silent because now I understood. This wasn't just talking. This was probing, waiting for a response, waiting for me to engage, to confirm something, to open something. The air behind me shifted again, closer, closer than before. I could almost feel it now, a presence just out of reach, just out of sight, breathing, matching my rhythm. My pulse spiked because it wasn't just speaking to me anymore. It was syncing with me, learning me. You hear it too, don't you? That stopped me because that question, it wasn't random. It was specific, targeted, and it hit something in my mind I hadn't fully processed yet. The water, the movement beneath it, tracking me, following me. My chest tightened. I hadn't answered, not out loud, but something in me reacted, and that was enough. The voice shifted again, lower now, quieter. It's been waiting. A cold weight settled in my stomach because suddenly this didn't feel like two separate things anymore. The thing in the water, the thing in the room, they weren't independent. They weren't cynical. They were connected, working together, or worse, the same, just different parts of it. I couldn't stay there. I knew that now. Every instinct finally aligned on one thing. Get out. Now. I turned, fast this time. Not caring what I saw, not caring if I saw it, and moved straight for the doorway. The light outside hit harder than before, too bright, too sharp. I stepped onto the walkway and froze because the water wasn't still anymore. It was moving. All of it. Not violently, not splashing, just shifting. Like something massive beneath the surface had changed position. And now, it wasn't just tracking me. It was rising, slowly, deliberately, toward the place where I stood. And behind me, from the inside the structure, the voice came one last time, right at my back, so close I felt it brush the air near my ear. Don't run. I didn't listen, because whatever this thing was, it didn't just call you. It waited until you answered, and I had already made that mistake once. I wasn't about to make it again. I moved faster than I should have. The walkway groaned under my weight, each step louder than the last, like the swamp itself was reacting, protesting, warning. The water beside me wasn't pretending anymore. It was shifting openly now. Wide, slow ripples spreading outward from a single point just below the surface, tracking me with precision, matching every step, every movement. I didn't look directly down again. I didn't want to see it, because whatever was under there, it wasn't something I could understand, and seeing it clearly would only make that worse. I reached the end of the hallway where it connected to the main path, a narrow strip of warped wood leading back toward solid ground, or what passed for it. The moment my foot hit that last section, the sound stopped completely. The water went silent again, like it had never moved, like nothing had ever been there at all. I froze, mid-step, heart pounding, because I knew what that meant. It hadn't gone away, it had just stopped following. That wasn't relief, that was worse, because it meant it didn't need to anymore. A low unease settled into my chest as I stepped off the wood and onto the mud at the edge of the swamp. It gave slightly under my vein, soft, unstable, but real, solid enough to move on. I didn't slow down, didn't stop. I headed straight for the truck, visible through the trees just ahead, half obscured by hanging moss and low branches. Every step felt heavier now, not physically, mentally, like something was pressing down on me from behind, from all directions. That same feeling from inside the structure, but stronger, wider, not confined to a room anymore. It was everywhere. I reached the truck, pulled the door open and climbed in fast, faster than I meant to. The slam of the door echoed through the swamp, sharp, unnatural. I locked it immediately, not because I thought it would matter, but because I needed to do something normal, something that made sense. I started the engine. The sound broke the silence hard, cutting through the thick air like it didn't belong there. For a moment, nothing happened. No movement, no reaction. Just the engine idling loud and steady. I gripped the wheel, trying to slow my breathing, trying to think clearly. This was over. It had to be. I'd seen enough, more than enough. Whatever this place was, it wasn't part of the joke. Not from outside, not from the water, from the backseat. You left me. Everything inside me stopped. My hands froze on the wheel. My breath caught halfway in my chest. Slowly, I looked into the reverse rearview mirror. The seat was empty. Of course it was. No one there, nothing there, but the air inside the truck, that same pressure, that same presence. Close, too close. Why did you leave? The voice was clearer now, stronger, and I recognized it, not fully, but enough. It was the same tone from inside the structure, the same shifting familiarity, trying to become something I would trust, something I would respond to. My throat tightened. I didn't answer, didn't even breathe, because now I understood something I hadn't before. Distance didn't matter, not to this thing. Leaving the structure, leaving the water, that didn't mean anything. It had already crossed that line. I thought you'd help me. The voice moved, not across the seat, not through space, just closer, like it didn't need distance to exist. My pulse hammered in my ears. I turned the key harder, shifted into drive, and hit the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning slightly in the mud before catching grip and pulling onto the narrow path. Branches scrapped against the sides, moss slapped against the windshield. Everything blurred past as I pushed forward, not caring about the speed, not caring about the terrain. I just needed out. needed distance, needed. You heard me, the voice said again. Calm, almost curious now, like it was observing, learning. You answered. My chest tightened because it was right. I had, not intentionally, not directly, but I had responded, and that was enough. The road stretched ahead, winding through the swamp, barely visible in places where the trees closed in too tightly. I didn't slow down, didn't look back, didn't check the mirrors again, because I knew if I looked, I might see it. And if I saw it, that would mean it had a form and shape, something real, something that could stay. Don't ignore me. The voice dropped lower, closer, right behind my ear now. You don't want to do that. I gripped the wheel harder, knuckles wide, eyes locked on the road ahead, because I finally understood the warning carved into that wall. It didn't matter where you were. It didn't matter how far you went. Once it called and you answered, you didn't leave it behind. You took it with you. And whatever this thing was, it wasn't done with me yet. I don't remember how long I drove. Time doesn't work right in places like that. 1 second you're moving, the next it feels like you've been stuck in the same stretch of road for hours. The swamp didn't open up, didn't thin out. If anything, it closed in tighter. Trees leaned closer to the path, branches hanging lower, moss dragging across the windshield in long, slow streaks that made it feel like something was reaching in. The road twisted more than I remembered. Too many turns, too many bends that didn't match the map I'd checked earlier. I should have hit the main road by now. I knew that, but I hadn't, and that realization settled in slowly, like something I didn't want to fully accept. I was getting out. Not yet. You're going the wrong way, the voice came again, calm, almost helpful, right behind me. I tightened my grip on the wheel, didn't answer, didn't react, but it didn't need me to. It already knew I heard it. Turn around. My jaw clenched because that suggestion, it wasn't random. It aligned with the thought already forming in my head, that creeping realization that something wasn't right, that I missed something, that maybe I should go back. That's how it worked, not forcing, not commanding, just nudging, matching what you were already thinking, making it feel like your own idea. I pressed harder on the gas. The engine responded, but the truck didn't pick up the speed it should have. The ground felt softer, more unstable, like I wasn't on a proper path anymore, like I drifted off without realizing it. The trees ahead shifted slightly, and that's when I saw it. Something standing just off the road, half hidden between two thick trunks. Tall, too tall. The shape didn't move, didn't react to the truck, just stood there, watching. My foot hovered over the brake for a split second, then I pushed the accelerator instead. I wasn't stopping, not again. The headlights swept over it as I got closer, and for a brief moment, I saw it clearly. Not fully, not enough to understand, but enough to know it wasn't human. The body was wrong, longer than it should be, limbs too thin in some places, too thick in others, and the head didn't sit right on the shoulders. It leaned forward slightly, like something used to move in on all fours, forcing itself upright. The eyes caught the light, not reflecting, absorbing, dark, deep, watching me pass. I didn't slow down, didn't turn my head, but I felt it. That same awareness from before, that same presence, stronger now, closer. Because this time, It wasn't just a voice, it had a body, or at least something close enough to one. "You see me now," the voice shifted. "Satisfied." That was the word that came to mind. Satisfied. Like this was part of the process, like it had been building to this moment. I swallowed hard, kept striving, because now there was no denying it. This wasn't just something in the water, it wasn't just something in the structures, it wasn't just something in my head. It was all of it, everywhere, at once. "Don't be afraid." That made my chest tighten, because it wasn't reassurance, it wasn't comfort, it was observation, like it was noting my reaction, cataloging it, understanding it. The road curved again, sharper this time, and when I followed it, the trees opened slightly, not much, just enough to reveal something ahead, a break, a clearing, but not like the ones I'd seen before. This one looked used. The ground was darker, more disturbed, not just mud, pressed repeatedly, over time. My pulse quickened because I knew that pattern. I'd seen it before, at the structures, deep impressions, heavy, uneven, the same marks. I slowed without meaning to, the truck rolling forward cautiously now because something about that clearing, it didn't feel abandoned. It felt active, recent, alive in a way the rest of the swamp wasn't. "This is where it happens," the voice whispered. Right beside my ear now. Not behind, not distant. Beside. Like it had moved closer again. Like it was leaning in. I didn't answer, didn't acknowledge, but my eyes stayed locked on the clearing because something in me already knew. This place wasn't random. This wasn't just another part of the swamp. This was a center point, a place things returned to, a place something began, and then movement. At the far edge of the clearing, low, fast, crossing between the trees. My breath caught because it wasn't just one, there were more shapes moving just out of full view, too quick to track, too deliberate to be random. And that's when the voice said something that made everything inside me go cold. "You're not the first." A pause, soft, almost amused. "But you might be the next." I should have driven straight through, not slowed, not looked, not given it anything, but I did. The truck rolled to a near stop at the edge of that clearing, engine idling now, like even it didn't want to make too much noise here. The ground ahead was wrong, not just disturbed, used, over and over again. The mud wasn't soft in the way swamp ground usually is. It was packed down, pressed flat in wide, uneven patches, like something heavy had stood there repeatedly, walked in circles, returned. My eyes scanned the clearing slowly, trying to count the shapes I'd seen moving, trying to track where they'd gone. Nothing. Gone again. Too fast, too quiet. But that didn't mean they weren't there. They were watching too. The voice whispered. Not behind me this time, not beside me. Closer, lower, like it had settled somewhere near my shoulder. My chest tightened. I still hadn't answered, not once, but it didn't matter. It was talking anyway, like it didn't need permission anymore. It shifted slightly in my seat, adjusting my grip on the wheel. The leather felt damp under my palms. I didn't know if it was sweat or something else, because the air inside the truck, it didn't feel like mine anymore. You feel it, don't you? The voice continued, softer now, not asking, knowing. The pull. That word hit harder than anything it had said before, because it was right. There was something there, not a thought, not a decision, something deeper, a quiet pressure in the back of my mind urging me to step out of the truck, to walk into that clearing, to see what was there, to understand. I clenched my jaw, pushed it down, ignored it, but it didn't fade. It stayed, steady, patient, waiting for me to give in. Everyone feels it. The voice shifted again, less curious, more certain. Some just fight longer. My pulse hammered in my ears because now I understood this wasn't just a presence. This was influence, subtle, persistent, working its way in, not forcing, not controlling, just waiting for the moment I stopped resisting. A flicker of movement caught my eye, front left, near the tree line. I snapped my gaze toward it. There, a shape, lower than before, crouched, watching, still enough that I almost missed it again. Then another, to the right, then another, farther back. They weren't moving like animals, not fully. They shifted positions, but always slowly, always carefully, like they were trying not to be seen or trying to let me see them just enough. My breathing grew shallow because now it was clear there wasn't just one. There were several, and they weren't surrounding me by accident. They were forming a perimeter. You understand now, the voice said quietly. There's no leaving the way you came. A cold wave moved through my chest because deep down I already knew that. The road behind me didn't feel real anymore. It felt like something that had already closed, already changed, already disappeared. I glanced in the rearview mirror without thinking, and my stomach dropped. There was no road, just trees, dense, unbroken, no path, no track, nothing to suggest I had driven in from that direction at all. My grip on the wheel tightened instantly. That wasn't possible. I knew it wasn't, but it was there, or rather, it wasn't. Don't panic, the voice said softly, almost reassuring. That makes it worse. My chest tightened further because that tone, it wasn't helping. It was studying, noting how I reacted, what made me tense, what made me freeze. This was still part of it, still part of whatever process this thing was running. I looked back toward the clearing. The shapes had shifted again, closer now, still just outside the truck's headlights, still not fully visible, but closer. And then one of them stood, slowly, deliberately, the movement unnatural, like joints bending in ways they shouldn't. The body rising higher than expected, tall, too tall. The outline clearer now, and for the first time, I saw the head, long, narrow, not wolf, not human, something in between, something wrong. My breath caught because I didn't need anyone to tell me what I was looking at anymore. This wasn't just a presence. This wasn't just a voice. This was something older, something tied to stories I'd heard once and never took seriously until now. You know what I am, the voice said quietly, right next to my ear again. I didn't answer, but it didn't matter because it already had what it needed, recognition. And that's when it said the one thing that made everything inside me go still. You just don't know what you're becoming. My hands didn't move. They stayed locked on the wheel, fingers stiff, like if I let go, even for a second, I'd lose whatever control I had left. But the words, they didn't leave. You don't know what you're becoming. They stayed in my head, echoing, not like something I heard, like something I understood too clearly. I swallowed hard, forced my eyes back to the clearing. The shapes hadn't advanced, not fully. They held their distance just beyond the reach of the headlights, shifting slowly, repositioning, like they were adjusting to me rather than closing in. That was the first thing that felt wrong. They weren't hunting, they weren't rushing, they were waiting. We don't need to chase, the voice whispered, confirming it, calm, certain. Because of course I did. It always did. It didn't just speak, it answered thoughts, filled in gaps, turned fear into understanding. My chest tightened because that meant something worse than being hunted. It meant I was already part of it, not physically, not yet, but something deeper, something it had already touched, already reached. You stepped in, the voice continued, quieter now, more personal. You answered, a pause. Then, that's how it starts. My pulse hammered harder because that line, it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a rule, like something that had happened before, many times. I forced myself to breathe, slow, controlled, tried to push past the noise in my head. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. People didn't just become something else. Not like this. Not from a voice, not from a place. But then my eyes drifted back to the shapes, the way they moved, the way they stood, not fully animal, not fully human, and something cold settled into my chest because suddenly they didn't look like creatures, they looked like results. You see it now, the voice said softly. They were like you. My throat tightened. I didn't want to believe that, didn't want to accept it but the thought had already rooted itself. Those things out there, they hadn't always been like that. They hadn't always belonged to this place. They had been brought here, led here, just like I had been. Some fought longer, the voice continued. Some didn't. A slow pressure built behind my eyes, not pain, not exactly, more like weight, like something was pressing inward, adjusting. My vision blurred slightly for a second, then snapped back. I blinked hard, shook my head, tried to focus, but something had changed, subtle, barely noticeable. The air, the way the air felt, the way the sounds, what little there were, reached me, sharper, clearer, wrong. You feel it, the voice whispered, satisfied again, not asking, observing. My breathing grew uneven because I did feel it, something shifting, something inside me reacting to this place, to that voice, to whatever was out there in the clearing. Not control, not possession, something slower, something that worked its way in, piece by piece. It doesn't happen all at once. A faint movement to the left pulled my attention. One of the shapes had stepped closer, just into the edge of the headlights now, enough to see more. The body, lean but powerful, the limbs, long, jointed wrong, and the face, closer to a wolf now, but stretched, distorted. The eyes locked on me, not hostile, not aggressive, just aware, recognizing something, and then it did something that made my stomach drop. It didn't growl, didn't bare its teeth, didn't lung. It stepped back, slowly, like it was given space, like it wasn't here to attack, because it didn't need to. We the voice said quietly, "until you understand." My hands tightened again because that word, we, not I, not just one, all of them, connected, part of the same thing, the same process, the same condition. I shook my head. "No," I muttered under my breath. The word came out rough, unsteady, because it was the first time I'd spoken since this started, and the moment I did, everything stopped. The shapes froze, the air shifted, the voice went silent, completely. My chest tightened instantly because I knew what that meant. I'd just done it again. I'd answered, not to it, not directly, but it didn't matter. I had responded, and that was enough. A slow, almost imperceptible sound came from outside, not from one direction, from all of them. A low exhale, like something collective had just changed, decided something. My pulse spiked because now this wasn't observation anymore. This was progression, and I had just moved it forward. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt complete, like something had just locked into place. My one word, barely more than a breath, hung in the air longer than it should have, not echoing, not fading, just existing. And everything out there reacted to it, not with movement, with stillness. The shapes at the edge of the clearing didn't advance, they didn't retreat, they just stood there, watching me in a way that felt different now, not studying, not testing, recognizing. That was the shift. That was what changed. My chest tightened slowly because I felt it too, not outside, inside, a pressure building just beneath the surface of my skin. Subtle at first, easy to ignore, but it didn't stay that way. It spread from my chest to my arms, up the back of my neck. Not pain, not exactly. Something else, something unfamiliar. My grip on the wheel weakened slightly. I hadn't realized how tense I'd been until my fingers started to loosen, like the strength was being pulled out of them, or worse, redirected. It begins when you stop fighting. The voice returned, quieter now, closer than ever, not near my ear, not behind me, inside. The realization hit instantly because I didn't just hear it this time. I felt it, like a thought that wasn't mine settling into place. My breathing hitched. I shook my head hard. No. But the word came out wrong, lower, rougher, like my throat wasn't forming in it the same way. I froze. That wasn't right. That wasn't my voice. A cold wave moved through me because that meant something physical was changing. Not just thoughts, not just perception, my body. Slowly, the voice whispered, "So you don't notice all at once." My pulse spiked because I was noticing now. My voice shifted again, but this time it didn't blur. It sharpened. The edges of the trees became clearer, the movement in the shadows more defined, the shapes in the clearing. I could see them better now, too well. Details I shouldn't be able to make out at this distance. The way their muscles moved under the surface, the way their heads turned in small, controlled motions, the way they breathed, slow, steady, like they weren't under any pressure at all. My chest rose faster because I realized something terrifying. My breathing was starting to match theirs, not consciously, not intentionally. It was just happening. "You are sinking," the voice said, satisfied again. Not excited, not eager, just confirming, like checking a box. I tried to pull my hand off the wheel. It moved, but slower than it should have, heavier, like my body wasn't responding the same way, like the signals weren't traveling as fast. My fingers twitched slightly, and I felt it. A strange tension under the skin, not muscle, not bone, something else, something shifting. My stomach turned because it didn't feel like growth, it felt like rearrangement. "Don't fight it," the voice whispered. "That makes it hurt." My jaw clenched instantly because now I understood this wasn't just happening. It had happened before, enough times that it knew exactly how it worked, exactly what came next. I forced myself to look away from the clearing, back to the road ahead. Focus, movement, leave. That was the only thing that mattered now. I shifted the truck into drive, pressed the gas. The engine responded, but slower this time, like something was resisting, not the truck, me. My foot didn't press as hard as it should have, didn't move as fast. The vehicle crept forward, and the moment it did, the shapes in the clearing moved, not toward me, with me, keeping pace, still at a distance, still watching, but now there was something else in their movement, something familiar. My chest tightened again because I recognized it. It was the same pattern the thing in the water had used, tracking, matching, staying aligned. "You won't leave," the voice said softly. "Not like this." A flicker of panic pushed through me, real panic this time, sharp, clear, but suddenly, this wasn't about escaping the swamp anymore. This was about escaping myself. I slammed my foot harder on the gas, forced it, pushed past whatever resistance I was feeling. The truck lurched forward properly this time, speed picking up, the clearing starting to fall behind, but not fast enough, because in the side mirror, I saw them, all of them, standing at the edge, watching, not chasing, not following, just waiting. And one of them, the tallest one, took a single step forward into the light, and for a brief moment, I saw its face clearly, not fully wolf, not fully human, but something in between, something that looked like it had once known what it was, and didn't anymore. My breath caught because there was something else in that face, something worse than the distortion, recognition, like it was something in me, something I hadn't fully seen yet. "You'll come back," the voice whispered, calm, certain. "They all do." And for the first time since this started, I wasn't afraid of the thing outside. I was afraid of the part of me that didn't want to leave. The road should have taken me out. It should have widened, straightened, led back to something familiar, but it didn't. It narrowed, twisted deeper. The trees grew closer again, branches scraping against, harder against the truck, the sound dragging along the metal like something trying to hold on. I kept driving, faster now, forcing it, because the longer I stayed in that place, the stronger it felt. That pull, not behind me, not from the clearing, from inside. My hands tightened on the wheel again, but it felt different now. Less control, more effort, like I had to remind my body what to do. "You can't outrun it," the voice echoed softly, not even a whisper anymore, just there, like a thought that had always been part of me. I gritted my teeth, focused on the road, focused on leaving. That was the only thing that mattered. But the swamp, it didn't change, didn't thin out, didn't give me anything. Just more of the same, more water, more trees, more darkness pressing in, and then something shifted. Not outside, inside the truck. My breathing stopped for a split second because the air felt warmer, thicker, like something had moved closer, not behind me, not beside me, closer than that. I swallowed hard, tried not to react, tried not to acknowledge it, because I knew the moment I did, it would use it. "You feel me now," the voice said quietly, and this time there was no direction, no position. It wasn't near me, it was me. My chest tightened violently because that realization, it broke something. The separation I'd been holding on to. The idea that this thing was external, that it was following me, that it could be felt, left behind, gone. "You let me in," the voice continued, calm, certain. My pulse hammered in my ears. "No," I said again, but the word came out wrong. Lower, strained, not mine. I froze, because I felt it this time. Really felt it. My throat, the way it moved, the way the sound formed, different, subtle, but unmistakable. My breathing hitched. I forced myself to focus on the road again, but even that felt off. The darkness ahead wasn't just shadow anymore. I could see through it. Shapes, details, movement between the trees that shouldn't have been visible at this speed. Too clear, too sharp. "Your eyes adjust first," the voice said, like it was explaining something, teaching. My stomach turned because it was teaching, not attacking, not forcing, guiding, step by step, through something that had already started. I shook my head again, harder this time, tried to break it, tried to push it out, but it didn't leave. It stayed, steady, patient, like it had nowhere else to go, because now it didn't need to. A sudden movement ahead snapped my focus forward. Something crossed the road, fast, low. My foot slammed the brake instinctively. The truck skidded slightly before stopping. My breath came fast now, sharp, uneven. I stared ahead, waiting, and then it stepped back into view, slowly, deliberately. One of them, closer than before, fully visible now in the headlights. The body, lean, stretched, unnatural. The limbs, too long, bending wrong at the joints, and the face, closer than anything I'd seen yet. The snout, longer now, more defined, but the eyes, still human enough to understand, still holding something inside them. Not just awareness, not just recognition, memory. My chest tightened because I knew this one hadn't been like this for long, not as long as the others. "You see what comes next," the voice said softly. No satisfaction this time, no curiosity, just certainty. The creature tilted its head slightly, studying me the same way the others had, and then it did something that made everything inside me go still. It opened its mouth, not to growl, not to attack, to speak. The sound that came out was broken, strained, but it was a word. Help. My breath caught because that voice, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the thing inside me. This was something else, something trapped, something still there, fighting. The creature took a slow step forward, closer to the truck, closer to me. "Don't," it tried again. The word twisted as it came out, barely holding together. "Stay." My chest tightened violently because now I understood something worse than anything before. This wasn't just a curse. This wasn't just transformation. This was awareness, trapped inside it, watching it happen, unable to stop it. My grip on the wheel weakened because a part of me A growing part recognized that feeling, that loss of control, that slipping, and then the voice inside me spoke again, soft, cold, right through that moment. It's already too late for him. A pause, then, but not for you. And for the first time, I didn't know which voice I was more afraid of. The one asking for help, or the one telling me not to listen. The word hung between us. Help. It didn't echo, didn't carry. It just stayed there, like it had weight, like it mattered. The creature stood into the headlights, unmoving now, its chest rising unevenly like every breath cost it something. The way it held itself, tense, strained, it wasn't the same as the others. This one was still fighting, still inside. My grip on the wheel loosened slightly, not because I wanted it to, because something in me recognized that struggle too closely. Don't. It tried again, the sound cracking through a throat that wasn't built to form words anymore. Leave. My chest tightened hard because that word, it hit something deeper than fear, something human, something I hadn't lost yet. The engine idled low beneath me, a steady vibration that felt distant now, like it belonged to another world, one I was already drifting away from. You hear him? The voice inside me said quietly, not mocking, not dismissive, just acknowledging. You understand what he is? My jaw clenched because I did. Too well. He wasn't just a creature, he was what happened when this went too far. When whatever had started inside me, finished. He answered too, the voice continued, calm, patient, just like you. My breath came slower now, not by choice. My body felt heavier, movements delayed, like there was a lag between what I wanted to do and what actually happened. I forced my hand back onto the wheel properly, forced my fingers to tighten, forced myself to stay in control, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't as immediate anymore. You can still choose. That made me pause, because that word, choose, it felt important, like this wasn't just happening automatically, like there was still a point where something could change. The creature outside shifted slightly, another step closer, not aggressive, not threatening, just reaching. Don't stay, it whispered again, voice breaking apart under that strain. It doesn't stop. My throat tightened, because now there were two different directions pulling at me, two voices, one inside, one outside, one calm, certain, the other desperate, fading. You think leaving saves you? The voice in my head said softly, it doesn't. I squeezed my eyes shut for a split second, trying to block it out, trying to think clearly, but the moment I did, something changed. Not outside, inside. The voice didn't fade. It got clearer, stronger, because I wasn't hearing it anymore. I was thinking it. My eyes snapped open. My chest rose sharply, because that line, it hadn't felt like something spoken to me. It felt like something I had come to on my own, and that terrified me more than anything else. See, the voice whispered, you're already learning. The creature outside let out a low, strained sound, not quite a growl, not quite a word, something in between. Its body trembled slightly, like it was fighting itself, fighting the same thing that was moving through me now. "Leave," it forced out again. "Please." My hand moved, slowly, not toward the gas, toward the door. I didn't tell it to, didn't decide to, it just happened. The handle felt cold under my fingers, too cold, like something that had been waiting. My breath caught, because I didn't know if that movement came from me or from whatever inside me now. "You don't need the truck," the voice said quietly. "You don't need any of this." My grip tightened on the handle, and for a moment, everything balanced perfectly between two outcomes, two paths: stay, leave, fight, or let go. The creature outside stepped closer again, not just a few feet, now just a few feet from the truck, close enough that I could see the detail in its eyes, the pain, the awareness, still there, still human, barely. "Don't," it whispered. "Become." My chest tightened violently, because that word, it didn't feel like a warning anymore. It felt like a description, like something that had already started. My hand twitched on the floor, on the door. The voice inside me went quiet, not gone, waiting, letting me decide. And in that moment, I realized something that made everything inside me go cold. This wasn't about escaping the swamp. It wasn't about outrunning anything. It was about a single choice, right here, right now. Because whatever I did next won't just determine if I left. It would determine what I left as. The moment stretched, not seconds, not minutes. It felt like hours. My hand stayed on the door handle, but my body no longer felt fully mine. The pressure inside, that subtle, insidious tug, had grown heavier. Every heartbeat thudded not just in my chest, but somewhere deep, lower, as if the very marrow of me had learned a new rhythm. Outside, the creature's eyes reflected the headlights. No hostility, only understanding, recognition. It wasn't just seeing me, it was knowing me, and that knowledge wasn't benign. It carried weight, it carried consequence. "You see it now," the voice inside me murmured, calm, certain, patient. "This is your threshold." The word struck me harder than any fear I'd felt before. Threshold, not boundary, not limit. Threshold. The line between what I was and what I would become. The creature shifted slightly, the joints bending in ways impossible. A slow, deliberate movement, and then, impossibly, it stepped even closer, close enough that if I opened the door, I would brush against it. Not a threat, not an attack, just presence. And with that presence came understanding, the truth, the swamp, the voice, the pull. It wasn't just out there, it was in me, always had been. It had waited for this moment, for me to reach the threshold. I swallowed, dry and tight. My tongue felt too thick, my mind raced, my instincts screamed to step back, slam the door, put the truck in reverse, leave it all behind. But another instinct, slower, darker, more compelling, whispered the opposite: to step forward, to see, to understand. "The choice isn't what you take," the voice said softly, almost reverently. "It's what you leave behind." A cold wave swept through me. I realized then that nothing I'd done had been enough to keep myself separate. Every glance, every breath, every hesitant movement had already blurred the line. I had stepped too far. The threshold wasn't a point to stop. It was a doorway I had already crossed. The creature crouched slightly, low to the ground, eyes still locked on me. Its mouth moved again, shaping words but not with sound. Not yet. Its intention pressed directly into my mind, clearer than any speech. Do you see? Do you understand what waits if you turn back? My chest tightened. I could feel my rib cage constricting under some invisible grip. The air had thickened, pressing against my skin like water. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud, harsh, echoing inside my skull, and underneath that, something else. A rhythm, not mine, not fully, but sinking. It's not fear that guides them, the inner voice said. It's recognition. Recognition. That word pulsed through me. I knew then that the swamp hadn't trapped me, the creature hadn't trapped me. I had trapped myself by looking, by listening, by answering, by being aware. Every step I'd taken, every thought I'd entertained, every moment I'd acknowledged the pull, it had been paving the way, teaching, preparing. The truck felt heavy beneath me. The air was thick, damp, almost viscous. My hands were trembling, but they weren't entirely under my control. My legs felt leaden, each muscle sluggish, reluctant to respond. My mind screamed for logic, for escape, for explanation, but all I could do was look into those eyes, human enough to recognize pain, beast enough to recognize inevitability. This is the moment, the voice whispered, right inside me, almost tenderly. The threshold waits, but you must decide. Will you close it behind you or step through and become what watches from the shadows? And there it was, the choice. Not between escape and capture, not between life and death, not even between fear and courage, but between what I was and what I would be when the swamp claimed its answer. I swallowed. My hands tightened on the wheel again, fighting the slow, invasive tug that had begun inside me. I could feel it now, threading through my veins, tugging at my mind, shaping my vision, sinking my heartbeat, and I knew there was no turning back. The creature tilted its head, almost inquisitively, patient, waiting, expectant, and in that gaze I saw myself, not as I was, not as I had been, but as I would be, a reflection of inevitability. I inhaled, the air heavy and damp, smelling of mud, rot, and something metallic between it all. The threshold loomed, the swamp waited, the voice in my head pulsed in rhythm with the tug. And in that moment, I realized the true horror wasn't the creature outside, it was the one inside me. The part that had been listening all along, the part that had already begun to answer. The threshold had me, and I hadn't even crossed it yet. The moment stretched and warped. Time no longer felt linear. Each second hung heavy, thick, like the swamp itself had slowed around me, breathing with me, sinking with me, pressing inward. I could feel the pull stronger than ever, tugging at my muscles, my bones, my thoughts. Every nerve ending throbbed with awareness I had never known, and it was watching. Outside, the creature stepped fully into the headlights. Its distorted form, elongated limbs, wolf-like features, still carrying a haunting glimmer of humanity, held steady. Its eyes, those glowing, painfully human eyes, locked on me, not with hunger, not with malice, but with something worse, expectation, judgment, and perhaps recognition. It's time, the voice inside me murmured, calm, certain. as if it had been waiting for this exact heartbeat. You've answered, you've felt, you've understood. Now you become. I swallowed. My mouth felt dry, tongue thick like old mud. My body shook, not violently, but with a trembling that I could not control. My fingers flexed against the wheel and I realized with a jolt that I wasn't moving them as I willed. They moved as the swamp willed. The creature tilted its head slightly, a gesture almost human. Its eyes narrowed, scanning me, studying the subtle shifts of my posture, my heartbeat, the tremor that ran from my chest to my legs. I didn't want to see it, didn't want to feel it, but I couldn't look away. You cannot run, the voice whispered. Not now, not ever. A cold surge pressed through my spine, up to my skull, into my teeth, and I shivered involuntarily. Something was changing. Not outside, not in the headlights, in me. The first undeniable sign came subtly, a shift in perception. The headlights no longer illuminated the swamp the same way. Shadows stretched differently, shapes in the distance twisted in forms I had never consciously seen before. I noticed every leaf, every branch, every ripple of the black water with unnatural clarity. The swamp was no longer a backdrop, it was alive, breathing, responding, speaking. See, the voice said, almost gently, you're learning. Then the physical changes began, small at first. My vision sharpened unnaturally. My hearing picked up distant sounds, a snapping branch, a rustle far down the path, a whisper I couldn't place. All simultaneously clear, all unignorable. My skin prickled as if the air itself was crawling against me. My muscles twitched and elongated. My spine straightened. My legs felt heavier, stronger, yet slightly alien. And then came the final realization. My reflection in the cracked rearview mirror. Not fully myself, not fully monster, but something between. My eyes glimmered with a strange, feral light. My features elongated slightly, sharper. I swallowed, and the sound I made, my own voice, yet not, rattled in my chest. Lower, harsher. The creature outside tilted its head again, a silent acknowledgement, and in that gaze, I saw the truth. I was not alone in this change. This was the swamp's way. The curse's inevitability. Once answered, once acknowledged, there was no going back. They all do, the voice whispered, just like it had said in the beginning. But you might choose differently. But the choice no longer mattered. My body was no longer fully mine. My thoughts were no longer entirely mine. My pulse, my breath, the rhythm of my movement, they all aligned with something older, something waiting beneath the murky water and the thick, mossy canopies. Something that had been patient for decades. I looked once more at the creature. Its eyes softened, briefly human, briefly sorrowful, and then it receded into the darkness of the swamp. Not gone, not disappeared, just absorbed back into the place it called home. And I was left with the lingering weight of understanding. The swamp had taught me. The swamp had claimed me. I had survived, yes, but only by answering the call, only by letting it in, only by the beginning to become. The truck no longer felt like mine. The road no longer looked the same. Every shadow, every flicker of movement in the trees, every whisper of wind carried a knowing, a recognition. I could feel it everywhere, inside me, outside me. I had stepped across the threshold and now there was no returning. I exhaled, but the air didn't leave my lungs. My body didn't fully belong to me anymore. My heartbeat synced with something vast, patient, eternal. And as the swamp closed in,
shadows stretching into every corner of the truck, I understood the final, terrible truth. I was not afraid, because fear was no longer mine to feel. I had become part of the night, part of the swamp, part of the Rougarou, and the hunt had only just begun.